Do you hate ads? I hate ads. You know what I love? Patreon.com/inkdependence, where patrons get access to a patron-only Discord, ad-free videos, and the joy of knowing they help support this channel. Hello folks, welcome to Inkdependence. I'm Mike, and today I have a pen I want to talk to you about, but in order to talk about this pen, the Esterbrook Model J, I want to talk about a couple of other pens because Esterbrook is a really interesting company in that they have brought back this older brand, and I think they're doing good things with it. I like the modern Esterbrook. So the first one that came out was this one under the Kenro ownership. This is the Esterbrook SD. This is the oversized model, which was my first one, and I quite like it. It is a plain black and silver pen without a huge amount of branding. We have Esterbrook here, and that's kind of it. It's just a nice kind of classic pen. I like the clip a lot. I think it's well done. And I really like that they added in this ability to use this MV converter, which is essentially a separate section that you can screw in vintage Esterbrook nibs to, because there are a zillion of these Esterbrook nibs out there. They are widely available, and they are a lot of people's first vintage, vintage experience because of how available the pens and nibs are. I will warn you, this does not work with every single one of these nib units, and that's probably because, well, those nib units have been around for a very long time, and they tend to, the materials warp and change shape slightly, and they may not be within the tolerance of this section. So it's kind of the way it goes. But I really like this pen. It doesn't really look like old Esterbrook's to me, but it looks like a modern pen that uses some Esterbrook stuff, and I'm into that. So I've been enjoying this pen for a very long time. Of course, there are a lot of different versions of this, different colors, a couple of different sizes, as you see here. So yeah, good start. And then, in order to have something that is much more like the original, like vintage Esterbrook J, they introduced the JR, which is a very small pen in comparison to especially the oversized SD, right? It's a much smaller pen, but it has a lot of the same kind of design language as the vintage Esterbrook's, right? So you have some of these very common things here, like the clips are in common. I think the jewel up here on the top is like very reminiscent, even though it's not an exact copy of any of these jewels. It has sort of a little butt plate down there, which is kind of a combination of these two things, or a merging of these two ideas. It is, however, like the SD, a cartridge and converter pen, which is much more standard these days. And frankly, I kind of like it better than the old lever fillers. This has like a lever and a spring inside. And there's like a rubber sack. It can be a whole pain in the butt to use sometimes and to clean. And I don't need that. As somebody who changes inks a whole lot and wants to use just like random inks from like boutique companies or whatever that might not play well with old sacks, like rubber sacks and things like that, man, converters, cartridges, very easy and convenient to use. But the problem with the JR is, well, it sounds like Junior, it is a fairly small pen, right? I mean, it's thin. It's not super short or anything, but it's a thin pen and like kind of small. So in order to have like a bigger version of this, they have recently, in the last year or so, released this pen, which is called the Esterbrook Model J. And you can see it is quite a lot larger than the JR, which is about the same size as the vintage J. And it does have some of the same design language, even though it is definitely not like a straight up copy, right? So we have this very similar kind of clip with those grooves in it. We have finial that I think is kind of reminiscent, even though it's definitely not the same. And then we have this sort of squared off bottom here. Now, these J pens are all using ebonite as far as I'm aware, although I'm sure they'll probably make acrylic ones eventually, but there are different colors of ebonite out now. When this one first came out, it was just brown and this green color, which I believe is called jade, which I thought was the most attractive version. I really like this pen. So it does have a little bit in common with the vintage J, but let's talk about it on its own merits, because I think on its own, it's a very nice pen. All right, so looking at it here, capped, you have a length of 5.36 inches, which is, I think, a perfectly cromulent size. It is going to be, as you'll see here when we do comparisons, a very similar size to a whole bunch of other pens that are very common in the space. When you uncap it here, you have a length just under 5 inches, which is, again, totally fine at 4.84 inches or 123 millimeters. When I hold it in my hand, which is admittedly a fairly large hand, I think it's very comfortable. I like the way the section acts with this diameter here of about 10 to 11 millimeters, depending on where you grip it. I think that's very nice. I like that it comes just back here to the back of my hand. It isn't back heavy or anything like that. You can post it, but when you post it, it becomes quite long at 6.69 inches, which is a little bit unwieldy, I think, at times, and it can make it kind of back heavy. And also, then you have the full weight of 26 grams, and that can be kind of heavy for some folks. Looking at the details here, you'll notice this is a sort of ribbony, swirly ebonite. I like that quite a lot. Ebonite is a very nice feeling material. You are going to get some variations in color and pattern between things like the sections and all that jazz, because as you turn ebonite down, you do get different colors expressed in there in different patterns. But I like the little swirly ribbons that we've got going on here with the green and the sort of yellowish color. I think that's really nice. The gold hardware they offer on this pen is really cool. You can see here the sort of hammered look of this. It's not exactly I guess I'm going to call it a belly band. It's kind of a belly band. It's not like a cap band or anything like that. It's on the barrel of the pen. And I think it gives it some nice interest. If this was not hammered, I think that would look kind of gaudy. But as it is, it is reminiscent of the overall effect I think I get from the vintage. And I think that's neat. Inside here, cartridge converter pen like the others. This is a standard international converter with, as you can see, some Esterbrook branding, just Esterbrook written around it. But this is a very standard international cartridge. Nothing weird going on there. One of the big advantages of using a JoWo number 6 nib, and they do have JoWo number 6 nibs in a whole bunch of different tip sizes, and also a bunch of different specialty grinds done by some really excellent nib grinders out there that are sold through Esterbrook. And I think that's great. In fact, like I have one of my friends, Gina, has this one called the Journaler nib that you can get on these, and it's a very nice little kind of like a sharp stub or kind of a chilled out italic, which I like quite a lot. This one is just a regular old broad nib, but I mean, you can also just swap in very easily other nib units like this one, which is a double broad. If you want to go extra big, very easy to make that swap. You just unscrew the nib there. In fact, if you Google up the Esterbrook YouTube page, you can find some videos that I made for them when this pen was released. Also of note, these threads here are very comfortable, even if you hold the pen pretty far back, and I never hold it that way. But I do tend to put a thumb on the threads, and they're very comfortable threads. They are not at all sharp. They're kind of, let's see if I can get the right contrast here. They're kind of squared off, but like not quite. They're not exactly Acme threads, but they are very comfortable and smooth. The capping, very smooth as well. I haven't had this pen dry out on me even when I have left it unused in a drawer for quite a while, which is a really nice feature. It has an excellent cap seal here. At least mine does. I can't speak for all the rest. It's the only one I have. It does not have a cap liner, I don't think, though. I'm pretty sure it's just straight up ebonite all the way to the back. So yeah, it's good that it is able to to have that good seal. All right, so let's look at it next to a bunch of other pens and then take a look at a writing sample. All right, here we have it next to a whole bunch of other pens, starting over here, the Esterbrook JR, which is the smallest here. Then the Platinum 3776, this is the Sands of Komodo version, which is a US exclusive, super pretty pen, great to use. The Esterbrook Model J, the TWSBI Diamond ALR 580, the Esterbrook SD in the regular size, and the Esterbrook SD oversize here. So a nice gamut of pens. This is right in the same size as the TWSBI and the 3776 there. Trade out a couple of things. We'll trade this one for a vintage SD. Right there, it's a vintage Esterbrook J. We can put in this one here, which is a Sailor 1911 large. So it's a little bit shorter than a large. There's a Leonardo Momenta Zero, just a regular old Momenta Zero. So you can see they're all right in the same size range there, which is a very comfortable size range, I think, for a lot of people. Let's go ahead and take these caps off and give it another look. All right, there you go. All the caps off. When you take the caps off, these pens are all a remarkably similar size. All three of these, the 1911 large, the Leonardo Momenta Zero, the Platinum, the J, even the JR, all within like a few millimeters of one another. These three especially are about the same. Let's see how it stacks up to this TWSBI. Yeah, so a little bit shorter than the 580 ALR. Yeah, there you go. All right, I'm not going to show them posted because, frankly, posting this pen makes it, I think, too back heavy and kind of unwieldy. You can do it if you're really into posting pens, but there's not a huge reason to do so, I don't think, unless you just really wanna. Okay, let's go ahead and take take a minute and do a little writing sample with this pen. This is a broad JoWo nib here, as you can see from that little B right there in the corner. And it is inked up with Troublemaker Sage. Now, I have been waving this around for a little while, so let's see how it starts. All right, yeah, it wrote really nicely. It's a fairly wet nib, which is kind of how I like it for a broad. And then this is inked with Troublemaker Sage, as I said, which is exclusive to Flax Pen to Paper, I believe is the full name of that store in California. I'm pretty sure they're out in LA. So I have not been able to visit them in LA, of course, but they have really nice inks and such there. This writes really nicely. I don't have any issues with the way it writes, and if you've used any of the JoWo nibs, you know, JoWo nibs are generally very good and they are very tunable, so and grindable and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it writes really nicely, as one would expect from a pen like, you know, this that is using JoWo nibs and all that jazz. The price point for this one is a little bit on the higher side. This is $295 as the MSRP. The MSRP. The street price, though, is usually around $265, give or take. And then you can also get these with an 18 karat nib, which brings it up to $545, which honestly, I think that's a little bit. I think that's a little bit excessive, and maybe you don't really need to have. Oh, sorry, 540. Yeah, 545. I was like, man, that had so much. Yeah, 545. I think it's a little bit much. The steel nibs on these are very good. I don't really think there's a particular reason to go up to the 18K, but you can get an 18K nib if that is your preference. You don't mind paying the premium for that sort of thing. So there you go. This has been the Esterbrook Model J, which is a beautiful ebonite pen that I enjoy writing with very much. Let me know what you think down there in the comments. I dig it. What's your favorite color for these? They did just come out with a violet one, which I think is very nice looking, but this jade is the one that called to me originally, so that is the one I went with. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see y'all in another video soon. Until then, peace out.